for non-democratic countries. We now want to figure out how many of the democratic countries have high levels of conflict and low levels of conflict. Again, we return to our tab. We set the regime type to 1, as we only need to count it for democratic countries first. Check 1 in regime type. And now you can count the number of democratic countries which have a 0 in the internal conflict column. Ones represent high conflict, so we can see the number over here and simply enter it in the table that we have. So there are 5 countries from democratic countries which have high levels of conflict. Now we simply count the zeros, which indicate low levels of conflict, and enter that number into the table. We now do the exact same for non-democratic countries. Again, we go to the regime type and check 0 because we only want to assess the levels of conflict in non-democratic countries. And now we can count the corresponding zeros in the internal conflict column to count how many non-democratic countries have low levels of conflict, as indicated by the 0 in the internal conflict column. This figure is 69, and we enter that. Now, keeping the regime type at 0, we count the number of non-democratic countries which have a 1 in the internal conflict column, which indicates high levels of conflict. Now, our final step includes calculating the percentage of democracies and non-democracies which have high and low levels of conflict. So let's start with calculating the number of democracies which have a high level of conflict. This would totally be the number of countries 5 out of 94 into 100. This number looks funny, and if this happens to you, you may want to go and check the formatting of the cell. As we can see here, it's set to percentage, which is why it's looking funny. Simply set it to number and hit OK. And it looks fine now. Now we can calculate the other percentages. So for low conflict, we take the number of countries which are democratic, which have low conflicts, divided by the total number of democratic countries into 100. Again, fix the formatting, and we get a number of 94.7%. Now we do the same for non-democratic countries and calculate the percentage of non-democratic countries which have either a high conflict level and low conflict level. Now, just to complete the table, we can get the total number of countries which have a high conflict level, just by simply adding both democratic and non-democratic countries with high conflict levels, and then do the same for low conflict levels. Our table is now complete, and we can begin to assess the relationship between regime type and conflict levels. Our table indicates that 94.7% of democratic countries have low levels of conflict, whereas 5.3% of democratic countries experience high levels of conflict. Similarly, 89.6% of non-democracies have low conflict levels, and 10.4% have high levels of conflict.